Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're well. Thank you very much for joining us in our webinar. I think we've waited a couple of minutes for the late arrivals, and so we'll get started now. Hopefully they've all arrived. I think if we go on to the first slide, please, Ben, if you're driving it.
Sure, will do.
Okay, so the subject today is how to plan your social content strategy. This is key, I would say that, because I'm a strategist. It is the first step in your social media cycle. And the cycle really is you have to plan your strategy, you then have to implement it, and you then have to evaluate it. And then you kind of fine tune it, and then you have to repeat the cycle again. Plan, implement, evaluate, plan, implement, evaluate. Test, test, test is the golden rule in social media. You're always changing it, fine tuning, testing it. It's an ongoing process. So a quick overview of what we're going to do today is how to do that planning. We'll give you the tools and the tips and a few hints. And we have a Q&A session at the end. So please do find a little button at the bottom where you can put your questions. Please do so, and we'll handle as many of them as we can. If not, please do come online afterwards and share them with us personally. The objectives of today are really to find out why it's so important, and also to learn about how to do it well. And as an outcome, you will clearly understand it. You'll know how to do it. You'll know how to do it well rather than badly, because believing me, there are plenty of people doing it very badly or not doing it at all. And we hope that you'll take away lots of ideas for your own content. So it should be inspiring as well as a good learning process for you. Now, we'd like to talk initially about what to write, when, and why, and what is the power of planning. And without a plan, you simply don't know what to do. You're shooting in the dark most of the time. But with a plan, your work is focused on your strategy, and it's targeted at specific stakeholders and no longer a waste of time. There is a perception, particularly amongst employers, if I may say that, that time spent on social media is time wasted. You could be better off doing something work-related. And actually, very often that is true, because people are just firing from the hip, whatever takes their mind. There's no strategy or plan behind it. Whereas with a plan, you're able to state that what you're doing is on plan, on target. There is a strategy behind it. There is a purpose behind it. And as a result of that, you would hope to expect the results that you plan for at the outset. Without this plan, you don't know what results to expect. With this plan, you would, as we'll show you in a moment, you would have a series of outcomes and results that you would hope to achieve, and you certainly could expect to achieve those, assuming they're realistic and you do a good job. So moving on, we would start by evaluating the position. So this means you need to analyze and understand what's going on at the moment, first and foremost. There's no point getting started without looking at where you are at this particular moment in time. You can look at all the activities of all the people in your organization, look at the stats, what's going on. Competitor activities are vital. If you can't do a competitor analysis, then come and talk to us. But it's really important, because it's war out there, and you're fighting for your share of people's engagement. Another thing to do is to look at parallel industries and seeing what people are doing. And you probably know that from your own experience, that people in might be suppliers or partner companies of one sort or another. They're doing something and you maybe admire the way they do it. And have a look and see what they're doing. If necessary, pick up the phone or email them and say, what do you get from your activities on LinkedIn or whatever? And finally, look at your audiences. Who are your target groups? And look at the profile of active channel users. Look at the channels that are available, because there's half a dozen channels available. Different people use different channels. And you won't necessarily find the same people using LinkedIn as using Instagram. But they might be on Facebook and they might be on Twitter. And then you have to target your channels. I say refer to your strategy and keep an open mind. This is key because so many people base their decisions on their own personal experience. And we come across this all the time. Oh, I don't use Twitter, so why would anyone I want to speak to be using Twitter? Well, you would be amazed. And or it might confirm your point of view. Keep an open mind. Adjust your content and style to the chosen channels. You wouldn't write the same thing on Instagram or on Twitter as you would on LinkedIn, because people are in a different frame of mind. You have to consider the context in which people are reading it. If I'm reading Facebook, I want something kind of amusing, and it could be funny, but it could be just a bit of fun, or it's unlikely to be that serious, frankly. Whereas the opposite is true of LinkedIn. And finally, media mix. It's been true for as long as I've been in the business, offline and on. Some people use some channels, some people use others. Very few people use all of them. If you want to reach all of your target audience, the likelihood is you're going to have to use a range of channels, a number of different channels. So remember, media mix. So to start with, you need to know what your objectives are, and you need to set some KPIs, because I've used the phrase before, you're shooting in the dark otherwise. If you don't have KPIs, then you won't know whether or not it's worth doing. If you don't have objectives, you won't know what to do. So I've given some examples here. So one objective might be building visibility of your organization, which could possibly be measured in the size of audiences. And the KPI that you put against that might be number of followers. This could be or opens or shares. It could just be a number. The next objective might be to encourage engagement, because actually the number of followers is pretty meaningless, really. I mean, pretty much anybody can get a lot of followers just by doing something a bit outrageous or something off target. It's easy to build followers, but it's not so easy getting engagement from them, because at the end of the day, the level of engagement you are able to generate is more important than the number of followers. I'd rather see fewer people who are engaging with you more actively than vast numbers of followers who probably pay no attention to what you're saying at all. And there is a method of measuring it, which is a percentage method. I've given the formula there, which is number of updates divided by the number of shares and comments and retweets. Again, if you want to discuss that, please talk to me afterwards. But it's probably one of the key indices of how successful you're being. Brand development. Are you looking for thought leadership, or as it would be called on an Instagram or a Facebook, an influencer status? And how do you measure this? Well, probably the easiest way is to look at the number of references and links from other websites and the backlinks. so set yourself a target and then measure it, and that might become one of your key performance indices. And then finally, you might want to drive sales because you see this as a new sales channel. And actually, that is becoming very significant these days. I mean, I would say 6 months ago, even 3 months ago, nobody frankly gave it a lot of thought that you could use social media as a sales channel. However, sad to say, with lockdown, etc., it is actually becoming a sales channel, and there are a number of companies who we're engaged with, for instance, who are looking at ways of turning it into a specific sales channel to replace what might not happen for quite a long time. So, it's important. And you might therefore measure your, your indicator might be the number of sales inquiries you get, or any other defined conversion rate. So,
if I could just add there, Mark, I think it's quite important to point out that there's no shame in selling on social media, though it's a way of having to creatively achieve that without whilst engaging in the purpose of social media, which is obviously to have engaging, adding content. But obviously, in the process of brand development, businesses are trying to increase their both visibility and sales potential. So that has to form part of the strategy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And actually, adding to that, also the social media platforms are encouraging and building tools so sales can fall in the social media network. For example, within Instagram, currently you'll be able to tag your products within a picture. As soon as a customer would click on that tag, they either, so in the future, they'll go to a direct sales page on Instagram. Currently, they would go to your sales page on your website for that product. So we're coming to see that all the platforms are trying to push on sales within their social media network rather than getting you onto your website.
That's right. And they really do treat content in the same way as they treat, or beginning to treat content the same way as they treat products. So quality will always shine out.
I wanted to add one more thing. Sorry, Mark, for the first slide that we spoken about the different channels and targeting channels. I think it's very important to spend a bit of time of researching your audience and finding out the correct social platforms for your business. It's very easy to go ahead and choose all of them. So there's many, even probably hundreds of different social networks around the world. So it's very easy to get distracted and start to create content and share on multiple platforms. However, maybe the majority of your audience is only based on 1, 2, or 3 main platforms that you need to focus your time on. So it is a consideration.
I heard some good advice the other day actually that said even if there are channels that you don't anticipate will be the right fit for your content, it's still worthwhile having them dressed for the occasion and having your brand presence cleanly portrayed on them. Even if you have a post pinned to the top of those other channels to explain either why you don't share content there or provide links over to your other channels. Social media channels per se do very well in terms of their visibility on search engines, and therefore provide a good backlink to companies' brands. So it's a worthwhile effort to secure your channels, even if you don't intend to use them.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. But then again, if you have a Facebook page that has 3 followers or 3 likes, and people go ahead and see that this is not really a popular page, no one's really using it, no one's really engaging in any of your posts, then you could go to your discredit your brand in another way.
Yeah, I think it's a discussion to be had, isn't it? And everything is on the table. There's nothing is dismissed before it's being considered. And it may be, Gil, that it's better to not approach those platforms that are not going to be of interest to your customers. On the other hand, as Ben says, actually, it may be better to cover them just in case. And, there is an old adage in marketing that you don't know, if you do what everyone else does, you'll only get what everyone else gets. Mm-hmm. And if you try something different, you might suddenly find that you get a different group of people who you didn't know existed.
Yeah, we're gingerly talking around strategy here, where everybody's strategy is different, of course. So it's important that companies cover it from what their customers expect and their own audiences. And of course, we're here to discuss your strategy with you. That said, I mean, I'm delighted that I didn't think we would have the reception that we have, registration that we've had today for the subject of planning. I was somewhat cynical, but I'm delighted to see how many people have joined us.
My favourite subject.
Yeah, I'm delighted to see that everyone takes it as seriously as we do, which is important. And just on this slide now, we're looking at potential audience types. If you call our previous webinar, we looked at this image, which is the various inbound content types for our inbound funnel. And if you didn't catch it before, it portrays all the various different types of content that you might expect your audiences to meet with you, your channel, your brand online, and the various brand assets. And what we've done here is try to depict the types of audiences now that you might expect to come through each piece. So I'm going to flip back and forth between this and another version of the image that will show you the types of audiences that you might see. And this hopefully will help you to start thinking about the various different types, and there are many varied types of individuals and customers, potential customers and audience members that will reach you. So going from the top to the bottom, starting with the grey boxes here, which really represent our sort of broadcast, conventional corporate broadcast media. So in a news release, for instance, we might expect an industry expert come through from an industry source or industry article. If we consider the press release there on the right-hand side, that might be published in a newsletter, and a existing subscriber or new subscriber of your newsletter might be greeted with that press release. Likewise, the one below there, client, we might expect an existing client to come through from an email broadcast or email correspondence, or indeed a mail out, as we've just described. And then via a media, video, podcast, or similar kind of a resource, you might expect an associate professional, maybe it's a supplier, maybe it's a partner, anyone who you may already have dealing with or has a vested interest in your activity. And then looking at the black boxes here, they really focus on social media. So from any social advert, not everyone invests in advertising on social, but I can assure you it's becoming a very quick growing area. You might expect a prospective customer to come through that way. Below that, we could expect a company employee to reach us through a social like or the share of a post. And over the other side, you might expect potential job candidates to reach your company or meet you through a social post. And as we get further down the funnel here, you may expect an investor to meet with your brand. I'm moving on to quickly. Investor to meet with your brand, say at an event or a conference. Below that, a blog post or an insight might lead traffic from a backlink or a referral on another website. And then further down, we would hope that Google is serving up search results for our users to come to our company website, and our existing social media followers or new followers are coming to our sales landing pages or our destination pages. So we can see there that there's a very broad mix of audience types, and often companies will overlook quite how many individuals or potential users are likely to meet with your content and your brand online. It's just not really considered. I'm not sure why, or if they do, they don't pay much mind to it. But frankly, people usually think, oh, well, they'll come through Google, or they'll come through, they might find us through a mail out. But actually, there's many, many different entry points that your audience could greet you on, and you should be considering them all. So campaign design and planning, with that in mind, we've picked our audience, but what does our audience expect to see from us and hear from us? So always defer to the strategy that you've built. This forms part of the strategy, but we talked last week about what you will be considering for your overarching strategy. So always refer to that when it comes to building and planning the campaign activity around your content. And be prepared to continually develop your strategy as well. What types of articles, posts, or resources will position you and your brand, your business, and articulate for you best? What posts, videos, what do they say about you? How do they look? How long are they? Do they have a happy, snappy feel to them? Are they more professional? All of these things will be referred to from your strategy in the main. Establish who your contributors are. This is quite a long topic. I think we'll go into this in some more detail. I'm sure the guys will want to contribute to it. It's an important one because it's different for every company. We have very different, varied, very colourful teams and structures of teams that we work with. Some are just individuals working for themselves, getting their companies off the ground. Some have, work across several departments, whether it's marketing, communications, sales, you name it. The configurations are varied, and you need to consider who your contributors are when it comes to actually building and creating the content.
Yeah, and I think it's important because when we're discussing this, we go into quite a lot of detail, and you can sometimes see people's faces falling because they realize just how much work there is involved in it. So it's really important to divvy it up between you and your colleagues in some way that it becomes sustainable. Because for a lot of people, they might be doing this on top of their day job. In respect of the fact that it's not seen in their job description as being of any great significance, so no time allocated. So how are they going to do all of this that we're saying? I mean, we're only on slide 12 or something. We're not even slides. There's 12 slides. We're only on slide 6 or something. And the way you do it is by collaborating with your colleagues, and you share it out between you, and make sure you've got plenty of contributors who are going to take the load off you. So you are really the organizer, the puppet master, rather than the chief bottle washer as well.
And I want to add, it's very important. And I think especially in these modern social media platforms, it's very important to have a variety of different content. So we always encourage our customers to upload videos and surveys and create interactive and engaging pieces on social media. It's very hard for one person that does marketing, that deals with a lot of different topics, to also be creative and be able to develop very unique content that would really beneficial the customers and the users on social media. So I think as many talented people that you can add to your team within your company, or perhaps companies you work with, suppliers that you work with that might be able to provide content as well. I think it will make your life much easier as a marketer.
Yeah. Creativity is important, isn't it? Because we're talking about social media here, so people choose to read your posts or your blogs or whatever it is. They don't have to. It's not a white paper that you need to read in order to further your knowledge of your industry or whatever. They choose to read it, and they choose to read it because it's they're going to learn something useful, or it's entertaining, or it's kind of a bit of information about the industry they didn't know before. So finding a way of making it interesting, related to the platform that you're using, is really important. You can't do it all yourself.
No, that's right. And whether you outsource this or whether you galvanize a internal team around this, you'll have lots of stakeholders involved in social media. Your sales team, for instance, might want to feed into exactly what is said and when to customers to correlate with their sales efforts. You'll have lots of people wanting to contribute to this process. Whether you outsource it or whether it's internal, it's better to make sure you have a means to collaborate with them ongoing and be able to distribute your plan.
Yeah.
So again, more broadly, campaign design and planning, the ideal long-term broadcast plan aligned with your marketing goals. We'll go into some of this a bit more in a few slides' time when we talk about scheduling. But really, you want to look for, in any communications that come from your company, you're looking for alignment with across the board, and so that will include, your business calendar, what's happening for you throughout the year, and how will that look in terms of your communications. It's very important, I think, to get a good lead time on this kind of planning. Of course, to your customer, it looks completely seamless and effortless, and it just happens by magic. But the reality is, you need to sort of get ahead of yourself when it comes to factoring all of this work in order to create that illusion, and also to leave space to be responsive. Don't overstretch your resources. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And exactly as it says there, key to everything that you do in marketing terms and social media and SEO, really, as Mark has said before, is marketing done well. You need to build a momentum. You need to develop your campaign momentum. You need to make sure that it's consistent and steadily done. It's sustained activity, evenly planned, and so therefore you can steadily ramp it up as it improves over time and apply greater resources to it. If you do too much too soon and there's too many random spikes in your activity, there's a danger you'll lose momentum and support for your efforts as well. Of course, if you need to resource this, you need support for that effort. And ultimately, your customers will, you'll find that engagement is hard to increase and improve on because they just don't know what to expect. It's inconsistent.
Yeah, I agree, Ben, and I think it's so important to take some time to plan before you're about to launch a campaign, and even before you're about to develop the content of the campaign, just to have some time and understand what exactly you want to do. And if you're a very motivated person, I would probably say take 10% of what you've done and remove it from your plan, as it's really it does take a lot of time developing all this content. So it's important to get quality content out there, and the time and the number of content doesn't really matter as long as it's high quality and it's engaging and people would like it and benefit from it. Otherwise, you can post a sentence every day on social media, no one would even be interested in it, and no one will reply to it, and you wouldn't get any new customers from it.
On the other hand, I don't want to frighten everyone off. If you're only doing a sort of social media light, that's fine, but just make sure you have a plan, because otherwise it just becomes a sort of meaningless frittering away of your time.
Yeah, and it's and be consistent. Have a steady level of activity to what you do. Over to Gil then. We're talking about campaign organisation.
Well, so I'm a keen planner, obviously, Mark. So we just created this table to show you how you can go ahead and plan your campaign work. So this campaign is going to be operating in July, August, September, and October. Every month we would want to have a different topic or a different benefit for our readers. So we'll be able to answer or share the content that we want in that specific month. In the columns, you'll see there is a separation for the different channels. So we've done an analysis in the beginning to find out what channels are suitable for our audience, and then we would place these here in the different rows. And under each channel, we will then put what sort of content we would like to be sharing. So we're not yet at the stage of scheduling the specific time and the specific names and the content of each one of these posts, but we would want to do an overview and finding out what's the general content that we will want to share. And I wrote down for me that this would be a great document to go ahead and share around your company, circulate it with the different stakeholders, so they will be also engaged and understand what's happening within the social media campaign and what's going to go out. And maybe they'll have input and suggestions and improvements throughout the campaign. So it's a very easy overview, simplify your social media's activities for the next few months.
I think seeing it broken down graphically like this makes it easier for everyone.
Okay.
Great. And then we just wanted to touch upon scheduling, and you guys can help me with that. But I think the first item is set up your communication in line with your campaign design. So make sure that you always touch base on your objectives and the points that you've been discussing. So take your plan that we've created before and then start breaking down this campaigns into actionable items, so you know exactly what you need to do, and you're always in line with your campaign design and what you agreed and what is your overall strategy. It's very easy to lose sight and forget about what you agreed to do and just get carried away and see that your competitors have done a specific post and you want to do the same, and then you lose kind of your flow and your planning of your campaigns. And then the second section is also to have a look about what's happening in the next or in the time frame of the campaign ahead. Finding out, are you going to have enough time to post all this social media? Are there any specific events happening at that time? Finding out if there are any industry changes. Are there any launches that your company is planning? So get all the different data and data points and planning to make sure that your campaign is in line with the time frame that you chose to advertise it. But then again, the third step is about leaving some space for maneuvering. Things change all the time. Social media change a lot. The climate changes a lot, especially with what's been happening now in the world. You never know what's going to happen next week. So leave a little bit of a space, wiggle space for you to make changes for your campaign. And perhaps go back to your schedule and amend it if you feel like there is a need.
Okay, I've just had a couple of reports from some of the attendees saying that the presentation has gone very pixelated. I don't know how you guys are over there, my fellow panelists. It looks okay here. It's possible there's some connection issues, so I just want to reassure everyone, we will share this video and the presentation within afterwards, assuming it's not too blurry throughout, and also update you about that. So apologies if you're having trouble at the moment. You might want to try to disconnect and join the meeting again and see if that helps your experience.
Ben, maybe we will try to share it from my side, maybe?
Okay. Okay, I'm recording the video here, but okay. How would you like to do that then?
Just stop sharing for a second and then I'll share my screen.
Okay.
Here we go. Hopefully this looks better. How does it look, guys?
Looks much better.
Okay, great. It's probably my kids. My kids playing too many games downstairs.
For sure. All right, and then the last step, back to marketing alignment. So know what's happening, break down your activities, and know who is doing who is doing, who is sharing the post, who is posting the post. Now, we will later recommend a social media scheduling software in which you can plan ahead and decide which post is going to go to who and what time. But you will also want to consider broadcasting and social posts that would come from your CEO, from your colleagues, for your employees within the company, from your distributors. So it doesn't have to come directly from your company channel. So find out all this, kind of figure out your campaign and find out where everything is going to come from and who is going to do what will make a big difference when you're about to broadcast your campaign.
Yeah, I think I just have to go quickly back to the second point. You made a point earlier, Gil, I think, about the unexpected or activities or expected activities, I should say, throughout the year. And you mentioned the point about if a competitor, for instance, does a product launch, and if you happen to know about that in advance, you might want to get communications ready or planned to combat that, or to have your own communications to either shield or to have a say on that. Mark, do you have a view on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're in professional services, for instance, and there's some key event, I don't know, in the political world or something like that, that's going to have an impact on your campaign, on your marketing, or let's say some legislation is introduced that is going to impact on the way you do business. This is particularly true of financial services, where the FCA are continually introducing new rules and regulations that people have to comply with. You want to be able on social media to comment on them and talk about them, because actually that's why people are on social media in the first place, really. So you need to have that flexibility in your plan to be able to insert some kind of commentary or discussion or whatever it is about contemporary events. This is what social media is all about. And actually your readers, your people who are engaging with you, your followers, they will all be concerned about these things in the same way as you are and expect you to comment on them.
Okay, great. And then let's just go to this next slide. All right, so we've created some tips combining all our knowledge and ideas of top tips that we think that you guys should adopt when you go through your planning stage of your campaign. So timing wise, it's very important to find out what are the best times for you to share and schedule your content. There's no point, obviously, sending a post out at 1 a.m. in the morning if your audience is not a nightclub. Or if so you just figure out what's the best times. And there are a lot of researchers and statistics online, depending on your industry, finding out what time actually between 10 or 11 or what time during the workday and what day of the week is most efficient to send that specific post. So we use that all the time when we're thinking about sending our content out in our customers' work.
For instance, if you're doing an email broadcast and the target is CEOs, then actually I've seen research that says you're best to do it after 6 o'clock in the evening or 11 o'clock on a Saturday morning, because a lot of CEOs, bless them, are hard at work at those times while everybody else is partying. Maybe not now, but that's how it used to be.
And then you'd have the edge, right? Because they wouldn't be getting any correspondence from anyone else. But
no, they'd probably have their heads in a spreadsheet and rather welcome a message from you.
Exactly, and that's why timing is very important. So we use a lot of social media scheduling tools. I don't know if any of you have been using these before. In the past, they were not as great as they are today. It was very hard to create a uniform sort of posting on multiple social medias. However, the current tools have been developing, and social media's platform actually give more options for these scheduling tools. So we use Hootsuite, and there's many other sort of products that you'll be able to use. And this would really help you schedule your campaign. If you're a large organization, you'll be able to use a scheduling tool also to organize approvals for posts. So if you are collaborating with other people, stakeholders within your company, and they will create the posts that they think they should come out, you as the social media manager will have the options to say, I approve this post, but I think this should leave at a certain time, or I think this is not the best post, or this is not the best time of publishing it. So
just want to corroborate that. Emma has chimed in to say Hootsuite is brilliant, and I agree. We over the years have tried a few different tools and become advocates for Hootsuite. But one of the great things about Hootsuite is that you can manage across different teams. And so for those of you marketing managers looking after bigger corporates and entities where your contributors and possibly your publishing workflow cuts across different teams and different content, Hootsuite is fantastic for that. Yeah. Where you can manage the tiered access and the publication and the publishing workflow.
A word of caution. I know we're talking about planning here, and Hootsuite and equivalents are vital for that. But actually don't forget social media is about engagement. And so and this is something that Hootsuite won't help you with. So, if you get somebody commenting on a tweet of yours or on LinkedIn, you need to be onto it. And the whole point of this is to get as much engagement as possible. So if somebody replies to a message that you put out about something or other, or comments on a blog you've written, you really want to be able to reply. And ideally, you want to do it in real time so that there's a conversation.
Luckily, Mark, you don't have to deal with Hootsuite too often. But actually, what Hootsuite is really good as well for doing is syndicating the feeds exactly the way you've depicted there. Syndicate the feeds across all your channels, so you can keep a live, real-time eye on the commentary, on the engagement that's coming through.
I was thinking about my phone when I'm out of the office. But,
one of the marvels of Hootsuite, yeah.
Doesn't get that far, I'm afraid, on mine.
Well, you've unfortunately suffered from in the past from having to, syndicate our communications across different channels and manage it that way. But yeah, actually, Hootsuite is great for that as a help. Gil, you've had a lot of experience with it, haven't you? And
yeah, they also have a mobile app you can download. So you could actually from Hootsuite itself, you can reply, you can comment, and you can create different channels according to your interests. So if you have a hashtag that you would like to engage with, you can create a channel with a hashtag, and anything that is on the web or across social media platforms coming up with this hashtag, you'll be able to go and reply as your user within this, within Hootsuite. So there's a lot of different tools that you have. Mark is right. Sometimes, for example, direct replies or private messages don't always come through the social media scheduling tool. So you would need to go ahead and look into independent social media platforms individually rather than using the tool all the time. But they are improving their capabilities in the way that they synchronize all this. So with time, more and more features like that will come up.
And it's absolutely right. Not just trying to save Mark's blushes here, but the reality is, you have to focus on your strategy, and it's very important that you focus on the strategy for engagement. Tools are wonderful. We know as marketers, we could play with tools all day long and get hung up on the ins and outs of using them. And maybe one day, hey, we'll do when Hootsuite pay us, we'll do a webinar on Hootsuite itself. But no, you must keep tying your planning, your activity back to your strategy.
All right. So the third tip is only schedule content that you are absolutely sure that will benefit your customer. We wrote at the tip below, if you see at the bottom of the page, tip 6, that social media are for social content. People go there to view and read social engaging information. They don't want to see a company saying, here, this is the product we sell, buy it. They want to have some engagement with your post. And the posts that work the best are posts about people, posts that ask questions, information that is requiring engaging and creating some sort of a community. For example, when we are sending out this webinar, we are publishing an event that we want people to engage with, and people then sign up and join us into a community event that we're experiencing now. And this is great. People love sharing content, discussion, being in a live situation. So yeah, very important. You guys got anything to add?
I don't think so. No, I think that's exactly right. Always consider your audience. Yeah.
Okay, and then really following this engagement pieces, it's very easy to write sentences that don't encourage any engagements on social media. So when you think about what you write, try to ask questions, perhaps trying to encourage people to comment. Now, you can't anymore, or you shouldn't be using the words comment now or like and share as Facebook and many of the social media platforms wouldn't like it, because it's not organic. You're basically making people like your post, but you would need to think about creative way to make sure that people engaging within your posts. So asking a question is the best way to engage. What do you guys think about this topic? What do you think about this product? How do you have any suggestions how we can improve it? Or what would you like to be hearing about in the next webinar by Marcom? And these topics are great because then you give the stage and the opportunities for people to share, give their opinion and encourage discussion, which all this will then increase the visibility. If a post is liked and shared and popular, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram would also put this post at the top of the feed of everyone else that is following you. And people that it doesn't. So it's a great way to get increase the organic reach massively.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then don't overschedule. It's very important as well. I think I mentioned it in the beginning of the webinar. Don't post content for the sake of posting. Post content that is relevant and is important, and you spend some time thinking about it, making sure it's relevant and beneficial for your customer. Sending a lot of posts will kind of cloud the feed. People will see your name all the time and they wouldn't even consider reading what you're sharing. So it's important not to overschedule. Avoid blanket scheduling. So Hootsuite and other social media scheduling tools help with that now, but don't just post the same old post on all your social media in the same way. Instagram require visuals. LinkedIn would like to have more of a professional kind of wording, whilst Facebook would encourage more of a community feel for your post. So make sure that you adapt your content to the specific social media, and this would also encourage engagement with your specific audience that is within that platform. And then think outside the box. Try to create refreshing content. People don't like to see the same old thing again and again. They're bored. People would like to read and see new, refreshing information. And I think Mark mentioned earlier about looking at parallel industries, finding out what not even your competitors do, but what other companies in other industries do very well. What are the leading companies in those other industries? And that will give you maybe some ideas and creative options of things that you can adapt and bring from other industries into yours and be special and unique, and not just repeat the same content again and again.
Yeah, don't lose sight of the fact that people have got to want to read what you're writing. It's no good broadcasting because that's what you want to say. They've got to want to read it.
Exactly, and I think Mark, you can do the last point.
Yeah, I mean, it's the sort of marketing skill to end all skills, which is to imagine yourself in the shoes of your customers and what is it that they want from you. And if you can do that, then you're halfway to being a successful marketer. It's not a case of just broadcasting what you want to say. It's a case of finding out what people are interested in and then serving it up to them in an interesting way. There used to be an old thing for advertising is sell the sizzle, not the sausage. Sell the benefits, not the product. Sell what it's going to do for you. What's in it for me? That's what people are thinking. I'm busy. I've got no time. I'd rather be reading somebody else's post. Why should I read yours? Well, if there's something there that's really interesting for them, they'll read it. They might even share it. Job done.
Make it sound so easy, Mark.
Yeah, well, yeah. So we've got a couple more webinars in this series coming up on the 4th and 18th. You can see them here. How to implement your content media, your content strategy in social media. This is about implementation. This is how to do it, the actual physical act of doing it. So this is the nub of it, really. And then the 18th, the last part of the cycle is you need to evaluate the effectiveness of it. You could be banging on social media for years, but if you don't actually analyze what you're doing and evaluate what it's worth to you, well, you could be barking up the wrong tree. And so I talked right at the beginning of this webinar about the cycle. plan, implement, evaluate. Plan, implement, evaluate. It's a constant fine-tuning process that you're going through. It never stands still. So that's on the 18th of June.
Yeah,
so,
and people received a notification from Zoom today. You are registered for the next webinars as well. So if you want to add these to your calendars, make sure it doesn't overlap. There is a little link you'll be able to download a calendar invite for these, and we will also send you notifications reminding you about these webinars.
Mm-hmm.
And as we've commented in the post to several people who've asked, we'll share this video and we'll share the presentation as well with you in a post on our website soon, and notify you about that as you subscribe to our newsletter.
Yeah. So now we have questions, and we'll hopefully have the answers. And I think we've got a number of questions in the box already. But if you'd like to ask a question on what we've discussed, or some area that you feel we could elaborate on in a bit more detail, please, at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little Q&A button. Just type it in there, and we'll pick it up immediately.
We've got lots here. We've got a few people leaving us, but thank you very much for attending, and look forward to seeing you again. Thanks for today. Yeah, we've got lots of questions to get through, Gil. Have you seen them coming through?
Yeah, so we had one question asking us, how do we keep with what social media platforms are the most popular for your specific industry? So how do we know whether we should now move from LinkedIn to Instagram, or whether we should stick with it, or what social media platform to pick?
Yeah, shall I take that one? It's obviously a tricky one, and things are changing gradually, or I should say can change quickly. For some time now, I think social media channels have been jostling for space, and you'll see new and upcoming social media channels like TikTok, etc., all trying to establish what their particular USP is. There's lots of types of conversation, should we say, and therefore a social media channel for everyone. Lots of styles of conversation. Obviously, we've seen LinkedIn really come to the surface for not only professionals and recruitment, etc., which is always historically LinkedIn was used for, but now obviously B2B, our field as well. But yeah, of course, there's a channel for everyone, and it leads back to the conversation we had earlier about what do you do for your brand presence online in terms of ensuring that you channel your traffic to the channels that you intend to use. If, for instance, Google is favouring TikTok channels, but you have no intent of creating 15-second viral videos, why not have a brand presence on TikTok, but link people, off to another social media channel and explain, why, or put a video there, explaining why you tend not to use TikTok but use LinkedIn, and funnel your traffic that way. I guess the point to all of this is your brand equity is built online by the trust that you nurture in your audiences, and therefore what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If you have a presence in anywhere online, that traffic will eventually find your most visible assets and visible properties.
Thank you, Ben. We had another question. Emma is a sole trader who doesn't have a lot of staff or a massive team to work with. Do we have any good ideas how to create a strategy and plan and implement this all by yourself?
Well, perhaps I could answer that to start off with. Implementation is down to you then. And in that case, there's only so much time you can give to it. So plan to do only a small amount. However, that plan is more important than if you had hosts of people sat beside their phones tapping away, because you've got to be much more focused and targeted. So my advice to you, Emma, would be to do your plan and when you implement it, part of the plan is that it will be a relatively lightweight thing, but the only tweets, LinkedIn posts, whatever it is you're doing, the only ones you do are really focused on your plan. You've got to schedule work to that. Don't get hoodwinked into thinking you're doing something really important by posting lots and lots of stuff about anything in particular.
I'd also suggest another very good tool and a benefit of using a scheduling social media tool is that it's not built to take a lot of your time. I don't know if you know, but Facebook, for example, used consultants. So it's using consultants from gambling casinos in Vegas to create an addiction or an addictive sounds in social media. So when you go ahead and refresh or get a new post or get a new like and comment, the sounds that you'll be hearing will make you want to stay on the social media and create some sort of an addiction for I guess a sort of gratification for the sounds or for comments. So what social media tools does, like Hootsuite and others, is they strip back all this nonsense that you'd see normally on Facebook or on LinkedIn, and you'll be able to focus your time and just see the relevant business, the topics are relevant for your business the most, rather than seeing a lot of kind of buzz and a lot of clouds around the topic that you'd like to focus on.
Yeah, and I think from a small business perspective or sole trader, often for a small business, when you find yourself doing social media, it's because you tend to feel it's because I haven't got enough work to do. It's important that you take the strategy that we've outlined here really will apply across the board, I would say. But if to simplify things for yourself, do try and tie it back to your new business efforts, so you do feel that the effort that you're spending there is time well spent, and that is focusing on how to generate new business for you.
Yeah. I've had one by text. How do we manage or how do we plan for our social media in international markets? And I have to say, I don't really know the answer to that. Do either of you?
I think, well, generally speaking, brands will. I mean, if you've got large companies that trade across regions, will have their own teams on the ground to manage communications in the required language. Generally speaking, though, brands will try to present themselves and operate with autonomy from their sort of their mother region, really, and build their channels around that. But it's hard to say where we otherwise tend to only deal with English-speaking brands and businesses. But if you were to take Apple, for instance, there will be an Apple team on the ground in, say, India or Indonesia who will manage the social media presence for those regions, but they will tend to be segmented into groups more than likely, whether technical groups or community groups around that brand. So that's an important thing to remember when it comes to social media, to employ groups as well as the channels themselves, as well as the company pages themselves.
And this individual is a small business, and he gets orders in from around the EU. And so the question is, how can he engage with his EU customers going forwards using social media? And I guess unless they're using English language streams, they're not going to be seeing what he's talking about, are they?
Well, I assume that I don't know, actually. It's interesting, but I'd have to look into it. It is interesting because we've got a couple of clients at the moment that are trading across regions, but whether the social media channels themselves, accommodate for different language speaking audiences. Gil, you're Israeli, so you would know.
Yeah, well, I would say if you don't have the budget to go around hiring a big team or have a full-time consultant, so many websites online that allows for freelancers that speak many different languages that will be able to assist you with managing your social media channels. And you can see some companies that would like to invest in a specific region. Like, for example, you're selling products in Russia and you'd like to share content in Russian. You will be able to create an extra social media entity, so a new page on LinkedIn or a new page on Instagram that would be dedicated to that region. So you can call it your company _Russia or etc. or wherever you'd like to manage this, and then find a local freelancer that speaks the language that you trust. Now it's hard when you're talking about your business comms to trust someone that you don't know. So you do need to develop a sort of relationship with them and kind of check what are they publishing on your behalf. So maybe in the beginning you'll monitor them and just ask them to translate your post rather than posting them on your behalf. But then later, once you develop trust, you can ask them to.
It's the end justifies the means, doesn't it? Really, I think if you're building a strategy around trading to other countries via social media, one would assume that you have the contracts to warrant the effort required. You need to put a team around it. But yeah, leverage groups, leverage other community pages. Also focus on the translated content that you're sending the traffic to. I mean, that's the first stop for most companies at the moment is create a custom landing page translated for that audience. And you can translate your, any paid advertising as well to that audience, that target audience.
There are country-specific channels as well. I've come across Viadio in France, and in fact, I'm a member of Viadio. So if you want to go and find me there, you can. But my French is a bit rusty. But there's presumably something similar in Germany and Italy and Spain and so on. But I don't personally know them. I'm not familiar with them, and you probably need to be a native speaker to be able to pick up on the nuances of language that people are using as well.
Yeah, you need someone that speaks the language and knows how to deal with it. One of the biggest social medias in the world is WeChat in China. So if that's your market, I'm sure there'll be hundreds and thousands of freelancers that will be able to assist with getting content out there.
Back, doesn't it, to sustaining it and making sure that effort is as you would treat it in your native country or native tongue. Lots of questions here, but one from Tom who says, can we comment on the strategy for repeating the same post on a feed? So presumably whether it's updates or to content specifically. Because Twitter is so instant and sort of designed to be that kind of disposable medium. What's our view on repetition in terms of posting schedule?
Sorry, Ben, can you ask it again?
So what's our view? Can we comment on the point around repetition in posting schedule? So if you're repeating an update or repeating a link to content.
On different social medias or the same?
On any social media. Tom highlights Twitter because it's so kind of disposable and quick.
So just to make sure I get it right, so repeating meaning publishing the same content that you've done before on the same day, on the same week, again and again?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, so I think there used to be some, I guess before social media, before the algorithm or the way that social posts were based on popularity, posts used to just show on people's feed according to the time you publish it. So if you'd go around at 8 a.m. and you'd put a post out on Twitter or anywhere else, whoever's at 8 a.m. or 8:15 will be able to see a post. So that's how social media used to work. However, in the last few years, the social media kind of algorithm has developed massively, and they're all based on popularity. And if your post is popular and is catching and people replying to it, people will see it days and days after. If your post hasn't got the engagement that you expected it to be and no one replied to it and there's no comments, you could consider deleting it and reposting again. But I wouldn't have the same content repeating on the same account again and again, as it just doesn't look. It looks a bit spammy, and it doesn't have the right kind of message when someone sees it.
We often see, don't we? You might have something crop up in your feed that's 3 or 4 days old, but it repeats in the feed later in the after the event. If either it's picked up other engagement, I suppose, or whether it happens that you missed it but want to see it later on. The algorithms are changing quite regularly.
What you can do is you can ask your colleagues and friends and people can you go and boost my post? Can you go and give it another like? Can you give it another share and a comment? And that will bring it up on the kind of on the rating, on the engagement piece. And Facebook or LinkedIn would then give it another boost and show it to more people, hoping that will kind of boost the visibility. That's something we'll cover in the next webinar about implementation. It's more about engagement. And that's right. I also think when it comes to the inbound marketing strategy that we often advocate for and have talked about a lot, absolutely no shame in sharing a post that's done particularly well. Often your content on your website and your blog will change over time. It will maybe there's factual information within it that changes and is updated. Maybe it just happens to be a very successful post and did well for you, even if it's a year old or something. Absolutely no reason, if it still articulates what you want to say and what your business stands for, then share it again. Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Tom. So we've got loads of questions today. I hope we can get through them all. We had one more question from Sarah that we can do. So maybe Mark, you can answer that. How do you get business followers or business contacts rather than just getting friends or people that want something from you? In the end of the day, you want to get engage with so many, with customers rather than just with friends or people or people in your industry.
Yeah. Well, there's two ways really. One way is the nature of your posts and your content. So ensure that it's the sort of post or content that your business contacts would be interested in, rather than your friends. It may be one and the same, but you'll get back what you put in. So if you put in something, I don't know, if you're a lawyer, for instance, and you put something in about law, then likelihood is that your friends and family aren't going to like it, but maybe other lawyers or people within the legal profession are going to. So in other words, customize your posts and tweets to the profession or product area that you're in. The other way is to advertise, and advertising on all the channels is a good way of broadening your reach amongst your target market. You can buy very specific job titles, interest areas that people have put as, or rather the platform has gleaned from a person's profile. So you can then widen your market amongst your target group in your area very easily. It's not expensive advertising generally. Obviously it is if you throw a lot at it, but for a relatively few number of pounds, you can widen it to quite a large number of people who might be in your market area.
Okay, great. There are other questions, but I think we are kind of over time. So feel free to send us an email after this call. You'll have your email, our email and contact details in any of the correspondence you've been receiving about the webinar. And over to you, Mark.
Yeah, just I introduced ourselves rather briefly at the beginning, but we're a marketing agency. You can see here what we do. We work strategically on social media and SEO. We design and build websites and other comms vehicles. We also work offline. And we act as your marketing department, really. So a lot of clients just pass everything over to us and say, get on with it. We know you've got the skill to do it because we've been around for a number of years, and there's very little we can't do. But our main focus is on SEO, social, digital marketing of one sort or another. So thank you very much for attending, and I'm very impressed you've seen it through to the bitter end. If you'd like to talk to us, the contact details are on the screen now, but you can find us via our website, mar-com.net. And we look forward to seeing you the next time, which I think is the 4th of June at 3 o'clock, when we'll be talking about implementation, how to do it. The key question, really. Look forward to seeing you then, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.